Once again with my mom's HHR. So it's been sitting here for months, right? She finally comes to pick it up, and like 2 of the wheels are locked up because of the brakes are locked up. So we just keep forcing it, and then they eventually pop. Car's driving fine. Of course, all the brakes need to be replaced. It drives horrible. So anyways, the engine started sputtering. We could smell gasoline, and sure enough, the HHR is leaking fuel from right there. Classic HHR crap, right? So I look at it, someone's already been inside of here. You can see there's like rubber hoses everywhere, just complete hack job. So I was able to pull it in here, and it shut off, and it won't start back up because there's no fuel pressure. That's how bad the leak was. Removed a bunch of the crap that was here, so we went and got a new 3/8 line. And as you can see, I just finished making a flare on this side, so when we put the hose over it, we could put a clamp behind it and it's gonna hold, because whoever was in here last, they used steel tubes that eventually just rotted out again, and they didn't flare the ends or anything. They just slid the tubing into the rubber hose and just put a clamp on it, which honestly isn't a good idea. So that's why I put the flares on it to hold. So we're gonna bend this tube in whatever way we need to bend it to be able to fix this. As you can see, I'm pulling out all the tools here. Got the flaring tool, got my tube bending tool. So you can see the flare came out perfect, and this is actually the first time I use this tube bending tool ever since I bought it. That was a pretty nice bend, guys, I'm not gonna lie. So it's looking pretty good here. Okay, so it's a few hours later. We got that fuel leak fixed. The car is running. You can see nothing is leaking. The puddles you see on the floor are not even from this car. No fuel leak. It was leaking. All this was just pouring out right there. And the engine's actually running a lot better. Before it was misfiring, of course, low fuel pressure. And now that the fuel leak is fixed, engine's actually running pretty good. But now that we got the car running, we are getting our classic, no, wait for it. Boom, engine power reduced. So don't worry about the fuel level sensor. We're not concerned about that right now. Something's going on where the car's been sitting for months practically with no gas in it, and now that we put gas in it, it should have like half a tank right now, and you can see that thing is not moving. It is stuck on E. So we don't know. Well, based off of here, I think there is a wiring issue or electrical issue. It's not like the pump is physically stuck, at least I don't think so. So I think there's a separate issue going on with that, but we're not concerned with it at this moment. The issue that we're having that's pretty much preventing us from driving the car is a P2122. Accelerator pedal position sensor 1 circuit low. As you can see, I pulled or printed out a wiring diagram for the pedal position sensor. I'm just trying to go through this, see what I could find, see if there's something that stands out. Now when the pedal is working and I have my scanner connected, it says everything agrees, and as you push the pedal, you know, the waveform goes up, goes down, everything looks like it's matching when it's working. But it doesn't take much of driving for this thing to go into that low power mode. And if you look right here, the white and black wire should be our 5-volt reference. Hopefully that's focusing. And when I back probed it, nothing, no 5-volt reference. So I figured, you know what, let me pierce the wire just to make sure I'm getting a good connection. I pierced the wire, again, no 5-volt reference. So I think that might be what's going on here. I don't think the pedal is actually at fault. I think we're missing that 5-volt reference. And just for shits and giggles, I wanted to check the 5-volt reference on the throttle body. So this is a wiring diagram also for the throttle body. And the 5-volt reference is going to be a gray wire. So if we go to the front, you can see I'm already back probed on the gray wire, and I'm gonna move my lead right here so I get good connection. And there goes our 5 volts. So we have our 5-volt reference at the throttle body, but we don't have a 5-volt reference at the accelerator pedal. All right, and just to show you guys, let's see, where am I? So I'm on that white wire with a black tracer up there. I'm actually using a piercing probe just to be 100% sure that I am getting good contact with that wire. Just to be sure that I have a good ground, I'm gonna go ahead and check right here at the DLC for a power. And as you can see, we got 14 volts because the engine is running right now. So I know I have a good ground on my meter. And if I come in here, I am making contact with that, and absolutely nothing on the meter. If I move my connection around, still nothing. We just don't have a 5-volt reference coming to the accelerator pedal. There is a tan wire that should also be a 5-volt reference. And there was our tan wire right there, right in front. So now I'm on the tan wire. Go ahead and check my meter one more time. 14 volts. I have a good ground. Go ahead and touch that. And again, no 5-volt reference here. I'm gonna move my wires around and still nothing. Both of the 5-volt reference coming to the accelerator pedal are missing. What's funny is that purple wire with the engine running, I see 5 volts on it. So it makes me question, is the wiring diagram correct, or is, I don't know, could like 5 volts be backfeeding through it since we don't have a ground? Next step is I want to go directly to the ECM. We're going to look for these wires, specifically that purple wire, the one that we didn't have our ground on, and let's check the ECM to see if we have our ground at that wire. If we do have our ground there, that means we have a break somewhere in the wire. There is a open. And honestly guys, that's what I'm thinking is going on here, because the car's been sitting for a few months in the same freaking spot. Mice, squirrels, whatever, they love cars like this that just sit, because they get in here, they make a nest, they start chewing on wires and blah blah blah, right? So honestly, we have not found a problem yet, but I got my money on that we're gonna find some rodent damage. This whole box right here is supposed to be the ECM, and it's showing there's 2 connectors on it, and the only thing here that has 2 connectors is this main box right here. So I'm gonna assume, you know, it's one of these 2, and I want to put my money on this one first. So let's unplug this and see if we could find our wire. We might have to take this cap off of here, this black cover, so we can expose the wires, and hopefully we could find the wire we're looking for. Something really interesting. So this red locking tab was just inside of here. Seems like it, oh there it goes. So it was like that, right? And I pull the red tab out, and then I pull this latch over to the right to release it, and here I am. Now I didn't hear it click like that the first time. Here I am trying to get the connector off, and I'm like, man, this thing won't come off. And then I look over at the one next to it, and what does it tell you? Look at them side by side. The way I just moved it is actually locking it. So this connector, look what happens when you pull back this lever right here. What did you notice? It actually separated, right? So what that does is it pulls the pins out. This connector wasn't really fully locked in for some reason. The last people in here were that ghetto, I mean ghetto ass shop that my mom took her car to put a transmission on. I got a whole story to tell you guys about that. I'll tell you that after we're done looking at this. So clearly they did not put this connector on correctly. Let's see if we can get this off of here now. Here it comes. Yeah, this connector was never fully engaged and locked in to the ECM. All right, we might be onto something. Now this is the part where you can look at this 2 different ways. The first way is that the shop just made an honest mistake. Someone put the connector in place and simply forgot to completely latch it down. Or the other option is, now put on your tinfoil caps here, is that it was intentional. Why? To maybe get a car to come back and potentially make more money off of it. I'm not saying all shops are bad. We know that there are good shops out there, but there are also some shady shops out there that do crap like this, trust me. You see the little red connector, and I got a picture right here. This is the picture before I even touched anything, the way it was when when we started looking into this issue. You see the little red locking tab? It's in its place. If that thing were just hanging loose, then I would believe that someone put the connector here and they simply forgot to come back to it. Honest mistake, they forgot to latch it down, right? But the fact that the connector was left open so that the pins aren't making great contact, but yet the red locking tab is in place, how did you miss that? I don't know, guys. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over this, but just something to think about, right? Oh my goodness, guys, you know what? I decided, before I start testing all this stuff, clearly the connector wasn't plugged in all the way. So before I start taking all this stuff apart, let's just plug it in, see what happens. plugged it in, I locked the latch on it, turned on the car. The very first thing I noticed is our gas gauge is now back. You can see we have a full tank of gas. So apparently we put more gas in it than we thought, because we didn't see the needle moving initially. This thing has a full tank of gas. All it says is door ajar. Before, it used to keep cycling between low fuel, whatever it said, like low power, reduced engine power, something like that, and it's not doing that anymore. You know what, before we start testing this thing, let me tell you guys a little bit of backstory of what's going on here. After my mom took it to this transmission shop to put a transmission, that's a whole story within itself, and I'll tell you guys in this video. Trust me, it's crazy. My mom brought it over here. Initially, this is the very first thing it came over here for before it sat here for a few months. A random no crank. Some guy that looked at it, some mechanic, told her it needs a starter, right? So one day she got in the car at her house, the car actually started. So she called me, hey, the car actually started. So I told her, well, why don't you bring it over here? Because sometimes bad starters, they'll like intermittently start, right? I told her to just bring it directly over here, go pick up a starter, we'll put the starter on it, right? I told her, are you sure it's a starter? You know, that what the guy said. Yeah, the guy checked it, he said it's a starter. All right, so she already had the part in hand. All I did was slap it on. I get in the car, turn the key, guess what? Click, click. Wasn't the battery, clearly wasn't the starter. So at that point, we kept checking things, and it was very, very intermittent. You can see I have this panel off of here, right? Because that day I was starting to check wiring, and I wanted to call an ignition switch on why we had this intermittent no crank, but I never made the call on it, and I never told her to go out and buy a part because I wasn't sure. Just things did not seem right to me. It seemed like I just couldn't pinpoint the problem, and I didn't want to shoot the parts cannon at it and just waste more money. So that's why this cover's off. Anyway, long story short, it drove me crazy, and I was actually recording a video on all this stuff, but I decided to scrap it because I'm like, you know what, I'm getting nowhere with this video. This video is just making me look stupid because I can't make heads or tails of what's going on here. Like, everything seems to be fine, and it's so intermittent that it's just, you know what, scrap the video. So it's what I did. All right, so it's a little bit later in the day. I came in the house and I printed out the wiring diagram for the starter, just to show you guys. So this would be the starter right here. Up here's the battery, and if you follow this diagram all the way through, right, it leads you right here to the ECM. Over here we got connector 3, which it says like clutch start signal, which I think is for a manual transmission, so I don't think that has anything to do with us. But over here, connector 1, starter relay coil control. Same exact connector that was loose on the ECM that we found it was loose. So let me tell you guys right now, ever since we found this loose connector on the ECM and got it plugged in, this whole intermittent no crank that the car was having has never showed its face again. So it means this car never needed a starter. The problem all along was that connector that was loose on the ECM, and why this thing would randomly not want to start. So it's crazy to think that whoever left this connector loose on the ECM caused so much frustration, time, headaches, and even more money and parts to be dumped into this car. Alright, so it seems like some things are back, but not 100%. Okay, so this red lead right here is back probed into one of our 5-volt reference. So if I go ahead and touch that, there goes our 5 volts. And then according to the wiring diagram, the tan wire should be our other 5-volt. Touch this one, nothing. Our ground is pretty much the same. We still have our ground, a good ground on that one wire, and then the purple wire has still like that 4 volts. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take it out for a test ride because, like I said earlier, the fuel gauge is not working, and the engine has been running this whole time. If you notice, it has not thrown a check engine light. Before, as soon as you delete the check engine light, I mean, there was no wait time. It was back immediately. If I don't have to waste too much time here, you know, chasing my tail, if the car is actually driving good and there's no telltale signs of something wrong, like a check engine light or anything like that, then there's no reason to keep digging into this. All right, so I've been driving the HHR around, and guys, this car is fixed. Yeah. It sounds so bad. I still gotta tell you what's going on with that. But look, no, I've been driving it, okay? No check engine light, no reduced engine power, nothing. And it has all its power. Before, I mean, this thing was a slug. It did not want to move. You can imagine with that connector pretty much disconnected from the ECM. Just things were not happy on the car. Drives like it did before, has all its power back. We even got a full tank of gas. Like, we went from empty to full, guys. That's amazing, right? Anyways, now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Can you guys hear all that noise that's coming from the suspension of this car? It literally sounds like things are loose. It sounds like struts are loose. It sounds like the sway bar bushing brackets are loose. It probably even sounds like the subframe itself is loose, okay? So the transmission went bad, my mom said, okay? So she took it to a shop, and guys, I cannot make this stuff up. Oh, by the way, the pedal is pulsing so hard every time you hit the brake pedal. I mean, these brakes are shot, like completely shot. I don't think I've ever been in a crappier car that when you push the brake pedal, the pedal actually like kicks back at you. It's crazy. If I could show you guys, I would. But it's crazy the amount of kickback that's coming off of the brake pedal every time you hit it. Anyways, so her transmission was going bad, right? She took it to a shop named Homie's Garage. So I told my mom, the place is literally called Homie's. Why would you trust them with your car? Okay, so anyway, story is they put a transmission in her car, right? And my mom's boyfriend was driving it on the expressway, you know, 60, 50 miles per hour. They said the transmission literally fell off the car while they were driving on the expressway. A tow truck had to pull my mom's HHR onto the tow truck, and then the tow truck driver had to like go in the middle of the expressway. He picked up the transmission, he like dragged it across the gravel, and he just threw it on the bed, the flatbed of his tow truck. My mom said the transmission was literally separated from the car. It was on the ground. So it got towed back to Homie's Garage, and that's when they apparently fixed it. They put another transmission in it. But you know what? I'm seeing signs all over the engine, not only the transmission, but like I said, the engine. There are junkyard writings all over the engine itself. Is it possible that, because you got to think about this, if a transmission physically falls off a car while a car is moving, it's going to cause massive amounts of damage, right? There's no way in hell I could see, even if you got a brand new transmission, there's no way in hell I could see a new transmission just bolting right up. All the threads are perfect, all the bolts are perfect. No, not gonna happen. I think they grabbed a junkyard engine and put it in my mom's car, because this car, it hasn't ran the same ever since she got it back from Homie's Garage. Tell me, is it possible that if a transmission physically falls off, and if you're wondering how does a transmission fall off, when they put a transmission on and they forget to put the bolts in, or they leave things loose for whatever reason, the only conclusion I could come to is they literally forgot to put the bolts in. Maybe someone put the transmission in place, they put the axles in, they put the subframe back up, and someone walked away from it and forgot to put all the bolts in the transmission. I don't know. It's hard for my mind to even comprehend this. But guys, this is the story I was told. And I asked someone else, and someone else backed up my mom's story because they were there with her. Everything she said, yes, they said the transmission was literally on the floor. So, yeah, I don't think there's a way in hell that no damage was caused to the engine by a transmission falling off of it. So I really do think that they grabbed a junkyard engine and put it in this car alongside with the different transmission. The sad thing is, if you guys remember, I did a complete head gasket, timing job, head job on my mom's engine. So it had like pretty much all the timing components new and all that stuff. The engine ran good, okay? So now we have this mystery engine in the car that came from a salvage yard. It really is a shame. Over a freaking Homie's Garage. Come on, guys. Who's gonna... That's like finding a shop called Hack Job and you trust them and pay them to fix your car. Their shop is literally called Hack Job. I can't make this stuff up, guys. Anyways, the car sounds horrible. It really does sound like things are loose on the front suspension. You can see it's getting darker outside, and I'm still driving this thing, and still no reduced engine, no check engine light. So it's now the next morning. First thing to notice here is the spring on the front right strut is snapped. You can see with a broken coil right there. I don't feel any loose tire rods or anything. Lower control arm seems fine. The stabilizer links are just like rusted in place. Obviously we know the brakes aren't looking too good. They do want to get these things fixed, but I mean like the cheapest parts, you know what I mean? Basically, even cheap parts are better than broken parts that don't work, you know what I mean? So we're gonna go on to Rock Auto, and like the cheapest strut assembly, the cheapest pads, the cheapest rotor. No one's trying to put money into this car. I don't think I mentioned this before, but my mom has a 2016 Toyota Corolla. She does not care about this car anymore. The little bit of money that they are gonna put into it to get it going is to give it to someone else, because this lady crashed her car. She doesn't have a car to get around in anymore. So the whole point of fixing the HHR was that this person can drive it. All right, that's it. I remember when she used to talk about, I love my HHR, blah blah blah, you know, no matter what I said, no, I love my HHR, I want to get it fixed. Ever since she got her Toyota, all of a sudden she loves her Toyota, and she said she'll never go back to a piece of junk like this. So now I know some of you don't believe me, but even I find it hard to believe. Like, look at this big old transmission, you know what I mean? And look how it's wedged inside of there, because there goes the subframe, here goes the rail of the car, the body. Like, how is there any space for that transmission to fall out of this car, especially connected to the axle? Even if someone forgot to put all the bolts in, it's more realistic that the transmission would probably separate from the engine, if it's even possible, and it would just get wedged inside of there somehow. How could the transmission possibly fall out of the car? I have no idea, guys. I have my doubts also, you know, but hey, it's my mom's story, and I know my mom likes to exaggerate. So anything I told you guys about the story with the transmission falling onto the ground, just gonna have to take it with a grain of salt. I don't know. You can see this mount down here completely snapped open. You see it broken? The only thing we know is a sketchy ass shop worked on this car, and honestly they made it worse, because my mom's car the transmission wasn't perfect, but the issue she was having was like a little bit of slipping in first gear, like when you first go to accelerate. Nothing major. I mean, it was so minor that I told her, don't even worry about it, just keep driving the car. But my mom is just weird like that, that like if there's one little issue, she's like, no, it needs to get done, it needs to get done. So she finds the cheapest shop that could do it, and guess what? Honestly, I feel like they put in a transmission that's worse than the one that came out of her car, because now when you put this thing into drive, it hits real hard. Her car never used to do that, but this one actually shifts hard. So after all this headaches and money spent, she actually got a worse transmission put in her car than the one that came out. That's horseshit. Okay, so it's about a week later. We are back with HHR. We have some parts here. Now there's more parts than this. It's just I'm only gonna start on the front right side, so I grabbed what I needed to do the front right side. I had to put air in this tire because it just keeps going low. It has a leak somewhere. I just filled it up right now. It's like draining in a matter of like 2 or 3 days. Okay, so we need to find this leak and plug it, and then whoever the hell is driving this car, their responsibility to go get the tires fixed the correct way or replace the tires, whatever, it's on them. I'm just fixing the initial leak, so a quick little band-aid. The biggest issue here is after a week of the car being okay with me fixing a fuel line, once again it is leaking. I turned the car on, I could smell gas, looked underneath the car, and I saw it pouring out from the bottom. So my little band-aid of a fix just didn't cut it. I'm gonna have to go in there and do some more work, but it's not a big issue. I'll get it fixed. Looking for a nail or a screw or something, and I found one right here. It's not a big leak. See it bubbling up, but also the tire is pretty deflated right now. There's probably about 11 psi in this tire. I'm sure if I put more air in it, we would see more air leaking out of here. So I got it out, and it wasn't a nail, it's actually part of a screw. The other end is just broken off of it. So that came out. You probably hear it hissing now, and it's too large of a leak to even get it to make bubbles. But there it goes. Okay, so as you can see, I got the plug in it. It's no longer hissing. I have to trim off the excess. Now, whenever I put plugs in, I like to put rubber cement on the actual plug itself before I put it in tire. Number one, it helps it slide in super easy, and it just helps with sealing up the leak, because not only do you have the plug, but you have that rubber cement taking up any tiny little voids and things like that. And as soon as I pulled it out, I mean, it stopped the leak instantly. Put it to about 35 psi. So go ahead and check it. I don't hear any noise, by the way, any hissing. And I don't see any bubbles, so that's good. Car's already giving me hell. So front rod side, you can see our broken spring right here. I went ahead and cut the stabilizer link off because we're gonna replace them anyway, so why fight with this nut right here. But this lower bolt is like completely seized inside of there, so try the air hammer, it doesn't want to budge. So as you can see, I have my ball joint press here, so I'm gonna attempt to push that bolt out. I already tried once, can't really tell if it's moving. All right, so it's coming out slowly, but it looks like it is coming out. As you can see, even with that much of the bolt sticking out, I still can't hit it out with the air hammer. It just isn't cutting it. This thing is fighting all the way to the end. So I finally got it out. There goes the old strut assembly. What I'm going to do now is take advantage of the space I have here and remove this end of the stabilizer link. Okay, so I got everything in place. Just want to show you guys the bolt. That was a pain in the butt to get out. I put it on the wire wheel and cleaned it up halfway decent. Yeah, it was just a bunch of corrosion just holding it in. And after I hit it with the wire wheel, I sprayed some CRC on it to hopefully protect it. I mean, it probably doesn't matter. I'm probably never gonna see this car again because I think, like I said, it's gonna be going to someone else, or she's gonna sell it or something. I have no idea. So maybe there's a lost cause, but it makes me feel a little bit better. And when I tell you the brakes felt like crap, I was not exaggerating. These were pretty good in here, pretty tight. Lots of crap inside of here, so it's a good thing I bought this kit. Let me go ahead and clean everything out and make everything move freely how it should, and we'll put everything back together. All new parts are on it. This thing's good to go. Well, not really. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the front left side. I'm not gonna connect this right now. I'll wait till I'm done with the other side just to make it a little bit easier, and then I'll come out here and reconnect that stabilizer link. So here on the front left side, this side also had a broken coil spring. I just didn't know it because it was broken way at the bottom. I'm all done on the front left side. As you can see, I already went on the front right side and connected that other stabilizer link. I'm taking the HHR for a test drive and obviously parking it on the street also. But I could already hear, just by backing out the driveway, I could already hear similar clunking noises and just bad sounds. Even though the stabilizer links and those broken struts have been replaced, there's still bad sounds coming from this car. So that just tells me that whatever the hell they took apart to pull off the trans, something is still loose. Don't know what it is. And obviously I don't want to be driving the car for too long because, like I said, we do have a fuel leak. I don't feel like being left stranded somewhere. But the brakes feel a million times better. The pedal's not pulsing anymore. The amount of noises has been reduced. Obviously we don't have, you know, broken strut springs and seized up stabilizer links, but there's still weird noises here. The noises I'm hearing every time I go over bumps, I swear it sounds like the subframe itself is loose and rattling, like the bolts aren't completely tight, or they cross-threaded the bolts, so they ran them in as far as they could get them to go in, but it's not really clamping down on the subframe. See, that sounds pretty bad. And I'm going to show you guys something that I just noticed. Okay, so there goes a broken engine mount. You can see it split right there. But let's go over here, and what do you notice? There's no bolt. This engine mount is not connected down here. I think it's connected up top. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it is. But it's definitely not connected down here, and the bolt holes aren't even aligning. So I got the old mount off, as you can see. And I found here in my collection of bolts, I found a bolt that threads right into this perfectly. The problem here is we don't have the length, and I don't have anything here in my collection that's gonna fit this. So don't know what to do at this moment. This just really pisses me off. Just freaking hats, man. Just, I'm telling you people, I know it sounds like I'm complaining and talking shit, but really, be careful. You know what, guys? Remember that clunking I was Oh my god. I was gonna point out I noticed that the lower radiator hose is leaking, and if you look closely, the clamp is in place, but it's not where it was originally. You could tell they just put it on there as fast as they can. And of course that lower hose is kind of leaking. Again, someone who just doesn't care about your car, they put the clamp on. You can see it's not even sitting even. It's at a weird angle right there. Again, it's just, you know, they just don't care about your car. They're just trying to get it in and out as fast as possible. And remember what I was saying, how it just sounds really bad going over bumps, that it sounds like the subframe is loose. Look what I just noticed, guys. What is that? What is that? How did I call it? I freaking knew it. The subframe isn't tight. Oh my god. Look at this. Wow. So whatever welded on nut is inside of the frame broke free, and there wasn't anything they could do about it, so they just left it. That's absolutely nuts. This side seems to be tight, but I'm gonna go ahead and start checking everything now. Let's deal with this engine mount first. Just putting my hand on the subframe. I could actually move this subframe up and down right now. I know you guys aren't gonna be able to tell, but I could see that subframe moving. Here at Global Gym, we're better than you, and we know it. So instead of just sitting here complaining all day, we need to come up with a solution. Now, I don't have a bolt that's long enough, so we got to come up with something, right? So I got 2 bolts here. They are the correct thread pitch to thread into the engine mount. If we put them together, they're the correct length. So what I did is I beveled each of the bolts right there. So we're going to put a weld right in the center, and then I cut this piece of rod or bolt. I cut the head off of it, and it's the same exact thread pitch as these 2 bolts right here. And basically I'm just using it for alignment purposes. So you can see all the threads are meshing together, and it's going to keep all of this aligned while I weld these 2 bolts together. And then once we get that welded together nice and solid, I could go ahead and cut one of these heads off, and then we could use this bolt. All right, so here goes the bolt that I welded up. You can see I ground off the excess welds. It's not completely straight, but I think it'll do. If I have to, I'll put it in the press and try to bend it straight. But I think that'll do because there's plenty of play in the hole that it goes into. The new mount here, I checked the thread pitch on it, and when I try running this in, even a brand new bolt, it doesn't want to go in smooth. So I found a tap, and I'm just gonna run the tap in there to clean up the threads, and then yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and try this out, see if it works. Okay, so the new mount is installed. Everything is torqued down. The 2 bolts on the engine, the one right here on the subframe, and the new bolt that I made torqued down just fine. No issues at all. So now it's time to start checking the subframe bolts. I'm going to go through each one. So this bolt back here is another subframe bolt. It's the one that goes through the lower control arm and into the body of the car. It's snug, but look at this. I'm able to turn it more, so it's not fully tightened down. Isn't that crazy? And here goes the same bolt, but on the driver's side. Right here, you can see it goes through the lower control arm. All right, ready? Look at that, guys. This bolt back here, completely loose. Isn't it nuts?